In 1999, a team of marine archaeologists dropped sonar equipment into the Gulf of Khambhat off the northwest coast of India. They were looking for sediment samples. What they found instead changed everything. Geometric structures, stone walls, a grid of streets, artifacts buried under 40 feet of water, carbon dated to 9,000 years before Christ. 11,000 years old. That's older than Göbekli Tepe, older than the pyramids, older than anything in the official record of human civilization. The Indian government called it the discovery of the century. And then, almost nothing happened. That's the part they don't talk about. Before we talk about what was found, we need to talk about what was always known. For 3,000 years, Hindu scripture described a city called Dwarka, the golden city of Lord Krishna, a metropolis of towers and temples built on an island surrounded by the sea. A place of extraordinary sophistication, with roads, harbours, palaces, and astronomical observatories. And then, according to the Mahabharata, the sea rose. In a single night, the ocean swallowed Dwarka whole. Krishna's city vanished beneath the waves and was never seen again. Mainstream archaeology classified it as myth, a religious legend, a story. Until someone looked. In 1981, marine archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao led the first underwater excavation off the coast of Dwarka in Gujarat. What he found was not myth. Stone anchors, walls, pottery, the structural foundations of a port city, all submerged, all clearly man-made, all dated to roughly 1500 BCE. That alone was significant. That alone rewrote the coastal history of ancient India. But it wasn't the deepest layer. In 2001, the National Institute of Ocean Technology, the NIOT, was conducting a pollution survey in the Gulf of Khambhat, 30 miles from the modern town of Dwarka. Their acoustic equipment picked up something on the seabed: geometric anomalies, right angles, repeating patterns. They sent down divers. What they recovered was extraordinary. Wood samples, human bones, pottery, stone tools, and carbon dating came back with a number that nobody was prepared for. 9,500 years before present, pushing the date of the settlement to approximately 7,500 BCE, more than 4,000 years before Sumer, more than 5,000 years before the first Egyptian dynasty. If the dating is correct, this is not just the oldest city in India. This is the oldest city ever found on Earth. Here is what makes Dwarka different from every other ancient site. 3 things that the official timeline cannot explain. The first, scale. The NIOT surveys mapped a submerged area of roughly 9 square kilometres. For context, ancient Troy covered approximately 2 square kilometres. Çatalhöyük, one of the oldest known settlements, covered just over 13 hectares. Whatever lies beneath the Gulf of Khambhat is not a village, it is a city. And at 7,500 BCE, cities were not supposed to exist. The second, depth. The ruins sit between 30 and 40 feet underwater. Sea levels in the Gulf of Khambhat rose rapidly at the end of the last ice age, as glaciers melted and oceans expanded. For the site to be at that depth, it had to have been above water before the sea level rise. That means it was built, inhabited, and then abandoned before 6000 BCE, which aligns precisely with the flood geology of the region and with the story in the Mahabharata. The third, the artifacts themselves. Among the objects recovered from the site was a piece of wood bearing what appear to be deliberate carvings, and a human jawbone. The jawbone was dated, independently by multiple labs, to over 9,000 years old. Someone was living there, someone was building there, before a single stone of Stonehenge had been laid, before the wheel, before writing, before officially any of this was supposed to be possible. In 2002, the Indian government announced that excavation of the Gulf of Khambhat site would be restricted. The site was declared a protected zone under the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act. Access was limited, diving was restricted, international involvement was curtailed. The official reasoning was preservation, that unrestricted access would damage the site. That is, on its face, a reasonable position. Archaeological sites do require protection. But here is what's strange. In the 23 years since that restriction was imposed, no major government-funded excavation has taken place. No comprehensive survey. No systematic recovery of artifacts. The site, potentially the oldest city on Earth, has been visited by almost no one. The ocean is still keeping it secret, and someone, it seems, prefers it that way. Dr. Rao, the archaeologist who first excavated the shallower Dwarka site, spent the last years of his life calling for proper investigation. He died in 2013. The deeper site remains, to this day, almost entirely unexcavated.
This is where Dwarka stops being just an archaeological story.
Because Dwarka is not unique. It is part of a pattern. Off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni Island, divers discovered a massive underwater structure in 1986. Stepped platforms, right angles, stairways carved into sandstone. Marine geologist Masaaki Kimura spent years documenting the site. The mainstream verdict? Probably natural. The debate continues. In the North Sea, sonar mapping has identified the drowned remnants of Doggerland, a landmass the size of Britain that connected England to mainland Europe until approximately 6000 BCE. We know people lived there. We have tools, bones, and traces of habitation pulled from trawler nets. The entire landscape is gone, swallowed. And then there is the Yucatan Shelf, the Persian Gulf, the Sunda Shelf in Southeast Asia. Vast continental shelves, all of them submerged in the same global event. The post-Ice Age sea level rise. Hundreds of meters of coastline, the exact kind of coastline where ancient settlements cluster, now 30, 40, 60 feet underwater. Unexplored, unreachable. Officially irrelevant. The question Dwarka forces us to ask is not whether one city was drowned by the sea. The question is, how many cities did we lose? Mainstream archaeology places the beginning of urban civilization at approximately 3500 BCE, in Mesopotamia, in the Fertile Crescent, in the river valleys of the ancient world. That is the official story, the one taught in schools, the one printed in textbooks. But the official story was built on an assumption that we have looked in the right places, that the evidence we have found is the evidence that exists. Dwarka challenges that assumption at its foundation. If a city of 9 square kilometres, with stone walls and streets, and 10,000 years of human habitation, could sit 30 feet underwater and be effectively ignored for 2 decades, then what else is down there? What cities, what temples, what libraries of knowledge are sitting on continental shelves right now, waiting for someone to look? The Younger Dryas, the catastrophic climate event we'll be examining in a future episode, raised sea levels by over 400 feet in less than 10,000 years. 400 feet. Every coastal settlement that existed before 6000 BCE is now underwater. And we have barely looked. Dwarka is not an anomaly. Dwarka is a window, a glimpse of what the ocean is hiding from us, and what certain institutions appear to have no interest in uncovering. The ruins beneath the Gulf of Khambhat have not moved. They are still there, 30 feet down, in the dark and the silt. 9 kilometres of streets and walls and the bones of people who lived and died 11,000 years ago. waiting for someone to care enough to look. In our next episode, we go to Egypt. Not to the pyramids, to the Sphinx, and to the one piece of geological evidence that the Egyptology establishment has spent 50 years trying to ignore: water erosion, on a monument that was built in a desert. If the dating on the Sphinx's erosion is correct, it was built before Egypt existed, before the desert, before everything we think we know about ancient history. What they buried, what we found. I'm Vaulted Age, and we're just getting started.